Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 10, Episode 33. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being with us this Wednesday, Steelers Nation, as we start approaching Steelers football again Monday night against the Dolphins. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing good. The bye week kind of got me behind there, so I lost track of the days, and I failed at my due. I let you down, Alex. I let you and the listeners down. I did not get a beat writer scheduled for us on Wednesday, but lo and behold, it's a Monday game this week, so a beat writer would fit in a lot better on Friday probably instead. So if you're tuning in today hoping for us to have a beat writer on to preview the game against the Dolphins, the Steelers game against the Dolphins, I apologize for that. Put that on me, but rest assured we'll try to get one for Friday. And other than that, just coming out of the bye here and crunching some numbers and looking at that Patriots defense from the other night, and my Lord.
I know. That was just dominance, and we'll talk about them a little bit later in the show. I know you wanted to kind of mention the schedule and some of the defensive numbers they're putting up. Hey, real quick, I just wanted to carry over briefly the conversation we had before the show. You were talking about your football card collection. You tweeted about it earlier. What is your prized possession in terms of football cards? Not even either maybe monetarily or more personally, like your favorite card that you happen to own, if you had to pick.
Oh, I've got some early Roberto Clemente stuff, I think.
Wow.
Not a rookie, though, unfortunately.
Wow.
But some of that. So obviously, I got a couple rookie, Willie Stargels. Oh man, just the We Are Family Steelers. I think way back there in the 70s, whatnot. I think that was forever my prize stuff. And then when it comes to the football card stuff, obviously anything's 70s related. I got some Bradshaw rookies. I mean, you name it along the lines of the 70s Steelers. There, I probably have the rookie cards and more than one or so of those. So yeah, it's just something that you keep closeted up all these years. I haven't been an avid collector of cards since, 86, 87, along those lines when the market kind of really fell out of it and all. And but everywhere I moved, and my wife gets mad because they take up so much room, But it's just one of those. Look, I don't have many great memories from my childhood, but card collecting was certainly one of those as a kid, and so I guess that's one of the main reasons I held on to them all these years.
Yeah, hey, no, I respect it. I have I just bought a couple weeks ago a Roy Jefferson card, not a rookie card or anything, but I saw one at the card shop. I like anything pre-Noel, you know how I am. I like anything kind of real old school like that.
Right, I've got a few, that I've come across over the years, obviously 70s stuff, both football and baseball, but because I was only born in 68, really didn't start collecting until, 72, 73. Obviously, I don't have a lot of stuff that old. And back when I was heavy into collecting and all, boy, the old stuff, or what was considered the old stuff back then, was just so damn expensive, back then.
Right. Very cool. All right, let's jump into some Steelers talk. Mike Tomlin spoke to the media on his typical Tuesday press conference yesterday, went through the injury report, so we will begin with that. I think overall it was mostly positive news, which is kind of what we talked about and expected during last week about the health of this team, when you're going to hopefully get guys back like James Washington, Steven Nelson. He said the guys like TJ Watt and Mike Hilton, Joe Hayden could be limited early in the week, but overall, based on the guys that missed last week or were limited last week, I think the trend is going in the right direction health-wise.
Yeah, and you always hate, we've learned over the years not to overreact and try to read way too much into this stuff way early in the week. Obviously, the injury reports will start coming out this week. We'll start, the first one will be on Thursday after practice, and you don't want to be too optimistic off of just some things that Tomlin has said. But then when you consider there's been a bye mixed in there, and you mash together what he said, I think it was last Wednesday with what he said on Tuesday, It is looking positive, and thank God the bye week came when it came. Mike Tomlin said that he started by updating the condition of Mark Barron with the hamstring and T.J. Watt, which I assume they're still calling an oblique injury, or at least that's how it was termed by Tomlin. I think last week there he says Mark Barron is working in a partial capacity. We'll let his participation and the quality of that participation be our guide in terms of his availability. We're excited. We got an extra day, yada, yada. He goes on to say T.J. Watt has been slowed with an abdominal issue, and it may affect him at the early portions of the week. So when, that'll be something obviously to look for come Thursday's injury report there. Barron obviously missed the Steelers' last game against the Chargers with that hamstring injury, while Watt suffered that oblique injury, I'm guessing sometime during the second half there. He went on to update the condition of a few other players, saying that Jaylen Samuels is starting to work, and it's good to see him out there, and you'll probably get an opportunity to continue to see him out there, at least in a partial capacity, to see where that leads us this week. I don't think either one of us are expecting Samuels to play this week, but it does sound like, I don't know, maybe by the game against the Rams, maybe they'll get him back, and who knows, maybe they'll get him back for the game against the Colts if he can heal up quick enough. Mike Tomlin then went and said Joe Hayden, and then that was it, coming out of what he had to say about Jaylen Samuels, and Tomlin wasn't really pressed anymore about Joe Hayden and that groin injury. So if there's someone on this list right now I think that I have the most questions about, it might be Joe Hayden right now. He went on to say Mike Hilton experienced a calf injury at the end of the Charger game and was slowed last week by that. He was slowed again yesterday, and it may affect him some throughout the early portions of the week. So that's one name to watch. He went on to say that guys like Steve Nelson, Vance McDonald, and James Washington with his shoulder are guys who have missed some time or have missed the last game or have been less than available in some instances, or are really moving beyond their circumstances. So I'm taking that all as a positive, the way Mike Tomlin worded that. So Mike Tomlin did not mention Roosevelt Nix by name. I guess that's a good thing, especially there was a report, I think, on Monday stating that Roosevelt Nix was practicing. It seemed like, I guess, by the quote that they have on him, that he's anticipating putting his hand back in the pile this week, and boy, won't that be a welcome sight to have him back, not only on offense, but on special teams as well. Mason Rudolph, obviously out of concussion protocol right now and back practicing full. So I would guess right now, Alex, my biggest question mark would be possibly Joe Hayden. And I don't know. We'll see what happens with T.J. Watt. But I have a feeling T.J. Watt will be able to work through this, hopefully, there. And it doesn't sound like Jaylen Samuels will be back this week.
Agreed. I think that you'll see Watt and Hayden and some other names, probably Barron, limited at the start of the week. You have the extra day for the Monday game. So I think you take this thing pretty cautious, pretty slow, especially with those vets like the names I just mentioned. The only one that I don't know about is Nix. I mean, it sounds like you said, he's practiced. He's gonna continue to practice. To what level, we're not quite sure, but he should be really, really close to coming back either this week or next week for sure. And then Samuels, I agree, still going to be another week or two away from that. So overall, though, I think the health of the team, based on everything they've had to go through on the current guys that have been injured, they're going to be in a positive direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, probably Samuel's down, and then we'll see what happens on a Thursday injury report with guys like Hayden and Mike Hilton.
Right. All right. He was also asked about Anthony Chickillo. It's a good time to kind of lead with that. Tomlin predictably didn't offer any new information, just kind of referred back to the statements from the team. Kevin Colbert put out a statement. The league has put out a statement just saying they will look into the matter. Chickillo was instructed to stay home from, Monday's practice, I believe, after the show that we did. And I don't know if he's been with the team since. Really no new update in that regard outside of the statements from people like Art Rooney and Kevin Colbert in the NFL briefly putting out their statements. So still in limbo, still on the team right now. And that's really the latest update I have for you.
Yeah, and that's Mike Tomlin was asked during his press conference, has he spoken to Anthony Chickillo? He says, I have. And he says, how was that conversation? He says, he will leave it between he and I. And largely, I don't have anything to say. We've released a few statements, and appropriately so. We want to do a good job of communicating with you guys, yada, yada. He was asked, will he practice tomorrow? He says, again, like I said, I'll leave it with the statements we provided you guys. Due to the nature and obviously seriousness and sensitivity of all this, it's hard to imagine Anthony Chickillo practicing this week and being part of this 53. Now, read into that what you will. Will they find enough in a quick enough amount of time and do the research to maybe warrant parting ways with Anthony Chickillo? Will they place him on the commissioner's, or will they get approval? And can they place him on the commissioner's exempt list while the league and the Steelers do this investigation? One would think, I'm speculating that's the way that they're going to go. Such a move was not, however, made, did not come across the official NFL transaction sheet on Tuesday, but with the game, of course, being on Monday, they might, the Steelers might be taking their time and dragging their feet on this. So I would think that if Anthony Chickillo is going to be placed on either cut or placed on the commissioner's exempt list, such a move would happen, I would think, by 4:00 today.
Yeah, if he was getting cut, then I think it would happen really sooner rather than later. Anything else, they may kind of wait and kind of maybe take until Saturday or something to decide on a decision. Either way, I don't expect
not that it's a big deal, but you have to pay him,
Sure.
For the week, obviously.
Right. Either way, he's not going to play against Miami, and I don't know when he's going to play again. I think they're going to go through the process, and I respect them for letting this process play out, not making any move one way or the other right now, and just kind of seeing what happens. But I guess for him, for Chickillo, best case scenario is that he's simply going to be inactive for Monday's game against Miami. I don't think he's playing anytime soon.
Do you think he'll be put on the commissioner's exempt list, or do you think he'll just be an inactive player?
It's hard for me to say. I mean, depending on, I don't know exactly to the degree when that gets invoked and used by the league. If it happens, I mean, fine. I think that makes sense. If not, I think that also makes sense too. I don't know exactly how this thing's going to play out, but all I know is that he's not going to be playing against Miami Monday night. That's the thing I can tell you with confidence.
Yeah, one would think, and look, I mean, I don't even know if I want him. I mean, how many days can you tell him not to come in? I understand not wanting to come in Monday because you don't probably want the distraction. You want him to maybe come in the back door, if anything, and talk to Tomlin and Kevin Colbert, and that's about it. But this is just an unfortunate situation. I've never viewed Anthony Chickillo as a bad guy. I just think, like so many others out there, you make a bad decision, and we don't know if alcohol or what not was involved, but there's probably a good chance that there was. It's just one of these decisions that that a person or a player makes in his life that could really alter the rest of his career, or at least professional career, NFL career, because Anthony Chickillo is not by any stretch of imagination a premier player in the NFL. Steelers pretty much have him as depth and a special teams player, and with kind of this black mark on him right now, so to speak, if it doesn't get cleared up appropriately, he might have played his last game.
Possible, absolutely. And we're still finding out facts right now. It's very much a he said, she said in terms of the incident, according to the police report. So we don't really know for sure what even happened at Nemacolin over the weekend. So that's all we can give you on Chickillo off the field right now. On the field, in terms of the depth at outside linebacker, Tomlin was asked about how do you feel about your depth, assuming, given that the Chickillo status is uncertain. And Tomlin was very blunt in his answer, saying, quote, "I'm not feeling great," but also said, "Such is life, in the National Football League. At times, man, you're going to be challenged in certain ways positionally. I didn't feel great about our running back depth last week. It's part of team, and it's part of this journey, and it's part of the process. We'll make do." So obviously, without Chickillo, Oladeney will slip into that number 3 role. And I don't know if this is a good time to talk about our buddy Tuzar Skipper or not, but Tomlin, very blunt about the issues at depth right now.
Oh boy, let's talk about Tuzar.
All right, let me set the clock here for an hour conversation that we're going to have. about
Where's
Tuzar.
my back powder at?
Yeah. All right. Well, let me set the scene for you, Dave, so you can do your victory lap. He was released. Tuzar Skipper was released yesterday by the New York Giants, who signed Deion Buchanan, and now Skipper is now on waivers. Obviously, just as he was when Pittsburgh released him prior to Week 1. According to my math, Steelers will be ninth in the waiver order. They're 10th, but the Giants are ahead of them, and obviously the Giants will be claiming Skipper, so the Steelers will be ninth, and we'll see A, if they claim him, and B, if they get awarded him, because somebody ahead of them could claim him, and then they get him. So, but it makes sense though, given the lack of depth, given the Chickillo incident, and their interest, and obviously that they like Tuzar Skipper. They didn't want to really lose Tuzar Skipper. It would make sense for them to put in a waiver claim.
Yeah, I would be absolutely shocked if they did not put in a claim for him today.
Be some grade A Colbert trolling if they don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I hate to I hate to harken back to what I said initially about the time that they lost him to waivers and all to the Giants and all, but you got to let these things play out. Yeah, you hated to lose the guy. On top of it, though, you understood the reason. Well, a lot of people probably didn't. Understanding it and liking it, I guess, are two different things there. They kept him past the initial 53 cut, but then had to make a decision to get who was it, Johnny Holton up for some special teams help and all like that on the initial game against the Patriots there, and Tuzar was the odd man out. Like it or not, that's just him. He was the bottom. He was the number 53 man player on the roster at the time. So, at the time, I believe I said, look, let's let this thing play out, because when you're dealing with guys at the back end of rosters like that, and I don't think we were totally shocked that Tuzar Skipper got claimed based on the preseason that he had, but for him in his situation, based on the limited amount, technically the limited amount of tape he had on him at the time. It was I think it was asking a little bit much to think that he might stick on the Giants 53-man roster the entire season. And that was the whole preface of what I think I pointed out way back there in, when was it, September or whatnot. Like, let's let this thing play out. Let's just see how it goes before we start throwing, darts and all like that. And when you go and boy, my timing was impeccable, was it not? When this Chickillo news surfaced, the screams about, they shouldn't have let they shouldn't have let Tuzar Skipper get away. All that narrative started coming back to the forefront all over the place, on the site, on Twitter, you name it. So I figured, okay, well, let's go run back in real quick and see how Tuzar Skipper's doing with the Giants. Well, obviously with the amount of snaps, I've been keeping a kind of a watchful eye out, paying attention to seeing if he shows up in the box score, and B, just looking at the snaps that he's played and kind of thing. And he's only played I think 40 total defensive snaps with the Giants. He played, I think, slightly higher amount of not even that, 27 or 29 special team snaps. So needless to say, it wasn't hard to go back through real quick and look at his highlights on tape and watch a few other instances of him in action. And he didn't look bad, by any stretch of the imagination, but he didn't play a lot on special teams. He didn't light it up, obviously in key play aspects there. So, right now you have a guy that's still very much in development. And I think the thing that caught my eye when putting together that post the other day, Alex, was the fact that why did this guy only play one defensive snap against the Arizona Cardinals?
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. I don't believe he played any special team snaps or maybe he played just a handful, 2 or 3 in that game. I think he had was credited with a kickoff tackle, which was essentially him running down and tagging down a guy that had muffed a kickoff. But I came away from that and I put one paragraph in that post saying that, that's not a good sign for him only playing one defensive snap. Then lo and behold, the next day he's waived there, which makes me look like a warlock of some sort, I guess. But regardless, he is back on, and we still can't, with the amount of tape that's out there right now on Tuzar Skipper, we still can't draw any hard conclusions of what he may or may not become at this point. The Giants had him on there. They got a good look at him there. They needed the roster spot, so they cut him loose. They're probably envisioned maybe him clearing waivers and maybe going to their practice squad right now. So, personally, I obviously don't know how this waiver wire thing is going to work out on this Wednesday. But when you look at the groups of teams ahead of the Steelers that could potentially claim him, who would want him at this point? Here's the thing that might play into his favor. It's the thing that most people bitched about during the preseason is him not playing a lot on special teams. Him not really playing a lot on special teams during the preseason, combined with him not playing a lot on special teams with the Giants, might make him just a passover for a lot of these teams. And I think you have to look at, how many of these are odd front teams, because I think teams that would view him more as an outside linebacker, he would be more attractive to. So, to be honest with you, I'm expecting him to make it to the Steelers in the waiver claim order.
Yeah, he may. He may very well. The teams ahead, and this is in no order here, are Miami, the Jets, Denver, the Chargers, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Washington, and Atlanta. I think Denver is certainly one team that could have interest, but it's all going to be based off not even just his tape in the preseason, but did they scout this guy in the pre-draft process, and how good is their pro scouting department, and what is the report on him in that aspect? Did they like him coming out? Did they try to sign him? I mean, I guess really no one tried to sign him, considering he was a tryout guy coming to Pittsburgh, so no one offered him a contract, obviously, right after the draft, but it would just depend on some pro scouting personnel if they have a good report on him or not. But I think Denver is one team that may have some interest.
I think the other thing that might play in his favor is the fact that he was waived on a Tuesday, and thus, by the time you put the waiver claim in him and get him into your building and all, is he going to be, unless he was a better than average special teams player, it's going to be kind of maybe hard, or unless you really are hampered in injuries, it's going to be kind of hard to bring him in right away for any of those teams and dress him right away. Now, that obviously isn't the only reason that you would make a decision to get him, but as fluid as the back end of rosters around the league are right now, you're probably looking more for help and healthy bodies, especially in the special teams department, more so than maybe looking ahead at 2020. Although that is playing in your mind, but look at Fred. I mean, it was easy to put 2 and 2 together and get 4 when it came to a guy like Fred Johnson and the Bengals, because that's a team that really needed offensive line help. And obviously offensive linemen don't play much, if any, special teams and that sort of thing. So, once again, we'll see how this goes. All it takes is one team ahead of the Steelers to grab them, and then we're back bitching and complaining again. But I like his chances of making it through.
Sure, I do too, and I'm all for claiming him and bringing him back. I think you obviously saw the talent he showed at Latrobe and in the preseason, that there's something there, and given obviously the Chickillo incident, it opens up a pretty big need at outside linebacker, given Tomlin's comments about the lack of depth and not feeling great about the depth there. I'm all for it, but I also want to understand is that even had Tuzar Skipper been on the Steelers 53-man roster the entire year, do you know what Steelers' record would have been? 2-4.
Right, and you know what else? And he probably wouldn't have dressed in the first 2 games. Let's be honest here. He probably wasn't going to dress against the Patriots. He probably wasn't going to dress against Seattle. Once there was no way to predict the Chickillo foot injury, but let's go ahead and add that into it. He probably would have dressed the previous 3 games that Chickillo was out. Assuming that there was no Jayrone Elliott in there, we're messing with the space-time continuum.
All right, giving us a little credit there.
We're messing with it with that right now. But when Chickillo came back against the Chargers, this past Sunday night, there was probably a good chance again that he would have been back inactive again. So, how many defensive snaps even had Skipper? And once again, we're way into dealing in Mike Tomlin hypotheticals here, but games 3, 4, and 5 for the Steelers, had he even dressed for those games, how many defensive snaps would he have played in those games? Obviously you probably would have played a handful of special team snaps in there, but there probably wouldn't be much tape on Tuzar Skipper anyway at this point defensively with the Steelers.
Well, I really just would copy and paste Elliott's numbers. He's got Jayrone Elliott's got 12 defensive snaps this season and 34 in special teams. And I imagine Skipper would be in a very similar position had he stuck on the roster the entire year. And I imagine that if he does circle back to Pittsburgh, he'll have about those numbers for the rest of the year, even with Chickillo's incident. Skipper's only going to play a little bit. He's not going to be playing really much. In some games, he may not play at all because they're really going to focus in on Watt and Dupree being the guys and the workhorses. That's how it's gone whenever Chickillo's missed. Even Adene's having trouble getting snaps, about 10 snaps a game whenever Chickillo's been unavailable. So even if Skipper comes back, it's not going to have really any sort of noticeable nor significant impact on the rest of the season. It's really more of a bring him back next year where you may not have Chickillo, you may not have Bud Dupree, and maybe more of an opportunity will be created there. But I'm not going to pretend like this move is going to shake up the Steelers season in any sort of noticeable way.
Yeah, I would think and hope that if you were to, if Chickillo, let's say Chickillo doesn't play another down for the Steelers, okay? Mm-hmm. You obviously, Adene's going to be the next guy up in that situation, as he should be. And let's assume Tuzar. And we got one more other variable here we're going to talk about here in a minute, but assume Tuzar Skipper. I think what you try to do at that point is to get Skipper some burn on special teams to see if he can make himself become one of those, like Mike Tomlin talked about the other day, about Benny Snell and Ulysses Gilbert, how those guys excel in special teams and all. And make no mistake about it, Skipper's probably never going to be a special teams demon. Not saying that he can't, but he probably going to not be a core guy, probably be a kickoff and maybe punt coverage team or something like that. But that aside, you would hope maybe as the season progresses, after you get him back in the building some, maybe you can get him a couple of snaps a game here and there. But I mean, we thought maybe last year we'd see that with Adene as well too. And how many snaps did he log? Of course, he had the injury mixed in there, but he really didn't get back into the fold until what, week 11, 12.
The Chargers game was the only game he appeared in.
Okay, and then he didn't get much burn hardly in that,
He had 9 snaps in that Chargers game. Yeah, I mean, Skipper would play a little bit. I mean, he may finish the season with, 25, 30 snaps, 50 snaps max, if he gets claimed and plays out the rest of the way. But again, it's not going to significantly change the season. It's just you liked him in preseason, you wanted to see more of him, you bummed that you lost him. He was the number 53 guy on 2 different rosters this year, Pittsburgh and the Giants. So while I like him and I still think there's something there, I recognize that he's also been the 53rd man on the roster and been cut twice in the span of 7 weeks.
Look, this is a guy you and I both like. I mean, definitely caught our eye. It forced us to keep him on our 53s, thinking that the Steelers might do the same sort of thing. Some impressive pass rush stuff during the preseason there, but that's all we know about him right now. Yes, if at all possible, I'd like to see him claim him back and let's see if there's something there moving forward. But on the flip side, let's not. Everybody wants to put, especially when it comes to edge rushers in Pittsburgh, everybody wants to make them the next James Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
And look, it'd be great if they could get him back to see what it is, but let's pump the brakes still, because we still don't know what this guy is or isn't.
Sure, I mean, he's a UDFA rookie. He's in his rookie year, but obviously it does make sense just based on the lack of depth and the talent that he shows. And I'm sure they didn't want to lose him. I'm sure they would have resigned to the practice squad had the Giants or no team claimed him when they released him prior to Week 1. So I expect them to put in a claim. Will they get him? We'll see. Again, will that be 8 teams ahead? Some teams that make sense, some teams that seasons are over and they're just trying to find talent and trying to add some pass rush and maybe look to futures contracts after the season. So we'll keep you updated. We'll know shortly whether or not they get him or not.
All right, now let me tell you Dave's plan here.
All right, hit me.
Dave's plan would be, at this point, Mike Tomlin just already told us that he's not very all that comfortable with the outside linebacker position, especially in light of what has happened with Chickillo right now. What I would do if you could do it, obviously, the league would have to agree to Chickillo, and this assumes that you still are in the fact-finding stage of Chickillo, not ready to make the ultimate decision with him. I would see about placing Chickillo on the commissioner's exempt list effective today. All right. As part of that move, hopefully I would put in a claim for Tuzar Skipper, and hopefully that reconciles out. I get Tuzar Skipper, and then that he would of course take the spot of Chickillo on the active 53-man roster, and then I would bring back Jayrone Elliott as well too, and I would go ahead and move Paxton Lynch. I would cut Paxton Lynch again, just hope and keep my fingers crossed that he would circle back and get him back to the practice squad, with that. So then what you've done is you've added 2 more back, and I would even be fine with Jayrone Elliott being the guy to dress over Tuzar Skipper. I know this is blasphemy, but I would be fine with Jayrone Elliott dressed because he's been the most recent one in the building. Okay. I would be fine with that this Monday night against the Dolphins because look, you still got to have 7 inactives, right? And
right.
And if Paxton Lynch is on no longer on the roster, you're not gonna need him there in that capacity. You're still gonna probably have one defensive lineman, either
still Bugs.
Walton or Bugs not dress. Sounds like Samuels is not probably gonna be out for a while, so he goes out. Maybe Moncrief, if Washington comes back, goes back to. So that inactive list, you're still going to be 1 or 2 short maybe on there, maybe because of injuries. So that's what I would do. I would bring back both Jayrone Elliott and Skipper, and then I would hopefully claim Tuzar Skipper and of course place Chickillo on the commissioner's list and cut Paxton Lynch and move back to the practice squad. That's what I would do.
Yeah, that all sounds fine with me. No argument here. And if Chickillo doesn't go to a commissioner's exempt list, then I would just claim Skipper and cut Paxton Lynch.
Just as simple as that. Now, what happens? We better throw this one out there just in case. What happens? I can hear it now, but we might as well prepare them for it. What happens if they sign Jayrone Elliott? In short, let's say Elliott runs up back on the 53. Tuzar clears waivers altogether, and then lands back on the Steelers practice squad. I mean, I don't think that. I think that's obviously the less likely of the scenarios there. But if we don't mention it, we can't pat ourselves on the back for it.
Well, the apocalyptic scenario I thought you were going to say was they just re-sign Elliott. They don't do anything with Skipper. They don't bring him back.
Oh Lord! Look, I mean, I think we both agree. There's no way that they don't put in a claim on Skipper today.
I mean, I assume that they would, but I don't like to talk in those absolutes about a rookie. I mean, I think that they will, but I mean, I can't say with 100% certainty. They may decide that they like Elliott, but my expectation is that yes, they will put in a claim on Skipper.
So I think have we covered all? I mean, they're going to have to do something today at the outside linebacker position.
Yeah, because right now they got a Daney who they don't seem to really trust right now, and I guess that goes to the larger point about depth with this front seven. Tomlin was asked about the defensive line depth, and he said, the quality of the player, the backups are basically determine how heavy of a rotation we have, and so that's relying on guys like McCullers and Walton, potentially Isaiah Buggs. So that's our linebacker. The depth is questionable. When Chickillo's been out, they've really had Watt and Dupree played about 90% of the snaps. There's a real concern with depth with the front seven, the defensive line, and the outside linebackers of both wearing those guys down in game and then late in the season that I think probably isn't being talked about enough. While you still have talent, still have a lot of good starters and guys that are playing well, the depth is going to become a serious issue when you've lost guys like Tuitt, and you have some issues at outside linebacker that are really going to, I think, manifest themselves as the season moves along.
Now, look, the loss of Tuitt is going to be hard enough, but I think it can be overcome.
From a starter point or a depth point?
I think you can put enough. I think you can put enough Band-Aids on it, though. I mean, it's going to hurt. I mean, that guy was playing monster football.
Sure. I think from a starter standpoint, you can live with it because you have Hargrave, and if Alulu plays decent, I mean, you can survive. But the depth is where it's really going to be an issue, and that's the point I'm trying to make here.
Sure. I mean, what's going to happen? Hopefully, you don't have to get in these long drive situations where you're having, you know, you're having the Waltons or the Bugs on the field or the McCullers on the field for large stretches of time, because that's really where it can really hurt.
Yeah, and not only just in game, but over the course of a season. Because if you, best case scenario, the Steelers team gets back in the playoff race, and you're sitting there in week 15, week 16, week 17, and you got some really tired legs out there, that's going to hurt you ultimately. I mean, Hayward's only played about 70% of the snaps this year. I imagine his snap count's going to have to go up the remainder of this year because they're going to be rotating him out less, just because they need to have their best players on the field. So that's where this stuff's going to start to really hurt you.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, kind of been hitting at being asked about, can you use some outside linebackers in those situations and all. I mean, look where he already told you that he don't like his depth right now. You can't continue to play Watt, 95% of the snaps a game either.
Right. Yeah, they're doing that with Dupree. They're doing that with Watt. They're going to have to do that with Hayward. Hargrave snaps can go up, and that's fine. But, the depth behind them is going to be limited. So that's my big concern right now, is just the lack of depth along the front seven, I think, is something that's a bigger issue than what's being mentioned right now.
And he talked about, we'll still find ways to get out there. And I think they will, especially, look, Vince is a guy that you can definitely send after the quarterback. Bush is starting to come into his own a little bit as well. Keith Butler's not shy about sending guys off the edge either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they'll still get pressure, but in those specific positions where there's been injury, that's who are the next man up? How is the rotation going to go? Because the Steelers have really talked about it. Carl Dunbar especially talked about having a rotation, keeping these guys fresh, to have them late in games or in 2-minute situations, or then having themselves fresh legs for the end of the season. Now that equation's going to change. They're not going to just put LT Walton out there for 20 snaps a game when you have a giant drop off from Hayward and Hargrave and even Alulu to a guy like Walton. So it's really going to stress those guys, and you're going to probably see some negative consequences of that the further in the season you go.
I tell you, I guess we're assuming Walton might be the guy. It's still early. I mean, we don't. It'll probably be. I don't think we'll have clarity on it maybe until actually the inactives are released Monday night there. But I think we both kind of are thinking Walton gets the helmet.
Yeah, he's going to be, Dunbar talked about needing a utility guy, someone that can play up and down the line, and Walton can do that. Bugs probably cannot do that right now.
And assuming you try to get a guy like Walton some snaps in a game, hopefully it's mostly in run situations, because that's where he excels at the most, is against the run.
Hopefully it's at nose tackle, and just kind of because Hargrave's going to play more base end, so McCullers is going to play more nose tackle, so you may have to rotate McCullers out a little bit more to get Walton, when he gets a little tired, and put Walton in there at nose tackle in your 3-4 base.
Right. So you want to try to stay away from situations where your pass rushers maybe are guys like McCullers or Walton in a sub package. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we don't get to see such an animal as that.
Right. And again, depth is a big concern right now. And I read about this, and just to talk about this briefly, the future of the outside linebacker position, I think, is pretty up in the air. I mean, outside of TJ Watt, what do you have for 2020? Dupree's going to be a free agent. Chickillo looks very unlikely to even, make it through the rest of the season, let alone into next year. Adeni's going to be around, but how much is a team like him? Tomlin has not exactly been speaking highly of him the way he talks about the depth at the position right now and the lack of playtime that he has. Draft capital is really tight. Free agency is not going to be probably as active as it was this past year. They got some big decisions and some big issues at that position for the future.
Yeah, no first round draft pick to get a premier edge either.
Right. They only have one day 1 or day 2 pick as of right now, and you got a lot of other needs to address as well.
So you're trying to tell me that Dave's not going to get his 7 edge rushers in the draft this year?
I don't think so. I mean, I really wonder,
Oh, and one tight end.
Of course, and one tight end. I really wonder if they're going to take a hard look at bringing back Bud Dupree. I mean, obviously the money's going to be an issue because he's going to be expensive. There's no question about that. But right now, that makes almost as much sense as anything right now.
Golly.
And maybe I'm saying that only because that's the concrete idea as opposed to the abstract idea of the draft or a free agent or something like that. But I mean, I'm just saying, who is your starting right outside linebacker next year?
Yeah, I'll punt on that question.
All right. I mean, did I like Adeni enough? It doesn't really seem like it, or at least they don't know enough about him right now to make that kind of evaluation. I don't know. I think there's a lot of question marks there about a premier position this team's always had talent at.
Yeah, and look, that's a question that just didn't all of a sudden surface anyway.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I guess their hope was obviously, maybe they thought Chickillo would be there in 2020 to have at least somebody who's played a decent amount of NFL games, and then, Daney could continue to progress and you just kind of go from there. But, obviously Chickillo's situation's kind of even made this a lot murkier.
See, if Kevin Colbert would follow the Dave Bryan plan of drafting 7 edge rushers every year, we wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah. I'll send the memo over to him.
And George Kittle.
That
still gets me angry, man. I'm gonna go to my grave with the Joshua Dobbs over George Kittle.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could go back and look at that for any team and say, man, you should have drafted this other guy instead. But yeah, I have an article this morning on Steelers Depot just talking about the future of the outside linebacker position, because outside of Watt, I don't really know how they're going to approach this, and they don't have a whole lot of options, draft capital or financially, to solve some of those things if Dupree walks.
Let me ask you this. How surprised were you to see Tuzar Skipper get waived yesterday, honestly?
I mean, I kind of went whoa to it just because I knew how Steelers fans were going to react to it. But, I mean, I knew he wasn't playing a lot with the Giants. I knew his tape wasn't particularly great out there. The half sack he had was really not impressive. It was kind of a cleanup play where the other guy really made
He got a late start off the ball.
My God. Yeah.
On that, and he should have been flagged for a face mask.
Oh, really? I didn't even see that.
Go back and look at the TV tape of the Look, I'm not knocking on the guy. I love edge rusher. I hope they, like I said time and time again. Why did people take that? You get all kinds in the comments and all like that. But I was really floored in this particular one. I thought I presented that in a very kind of objective, fair way when and even ended it saying, look, we really don't have an idea who this guy is, and I'll update in another 6 weeks of how he's progressed with the Giants and all like that. People took that post as me taking a shot at Tuzar. Do you understand that?
I didn't really see the reaction, but no, I don't understand. I think that's a fair critique of a rookie that's played 30 snaps in his career. It's fair to say you don't know a whole lot about him.
Right. And I wanted to make sure to point out that not just a handful of plays where stuck out, and I made sure to cover the PFF grades in there, which I think are fair. From what I've seen, obviously it's hard to go back and pick out exactly the 40 defensive snaps that he's played, but I think I found about 18 of them, 20 of them. And those kind. I mean, look, one thing that the biggest thing that caught my eye was the run stop against Tampa. I thought he did a great job of with that jab and getting off the I think it was the tight end on that play particularly, and getting a run stop in that situation. And the other play that caught my eye was him running downfield. Was it the game against the Vikings? I think him chasing the ball down to the other side, down to the goal line, and being there for the loose fumble.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was reading something very stupid on Twitter, and it's distracting me. I mean, he can make some plays. So, again, I was really impressed by what he did in the preseason, but I understand this is a UDFA rookie without a lot of snaps. It's not going to really help your team a whole lot in the short term. It's just a long-term play. And, again, given the depth issues for next year and the uncertainty there, I'm all for bringing Skipper back and having him in camp and having some bodies with potential that can come in and compete with whoever else you bring in to try to, find out the future at outside linebacker should Bud Dupree be in a different uniform next year.
All right, the good news is we should have a lot of answers by 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, again, Steelers are going to be 9th in the waiver order, and we'll let you know if they get them. That was all. Anything else from Tomlin? I know we just kind of really talked about Tuzar Skipper for the last half hour, but anything else that Tomlin said?
Speaking about Ola Daney, he was asking, he played both outside linebacker positions. He says, I can't speak to the comfortability. I think all of our guys that aren't frontline starters better have big-time versatility. Better take a highlight over that quote right there. Playing right or left should not be significant in terms of their ability to put their hand in the pile and aid us, particularly at the outside linebacker position. Some positions are a little bit different, left tackles and right tackles, but something like outside linebacker or corner, we expect those guys to be versatile enough to get in where they fit in.
Let me pull up his snap count because he's played both sides this year. He did it in camp in the preseason. He's played 25 snaps at left outside linebacker this year, and at right outside linebacker, he's played 14. So he's showcased that versatility. Anyone that's watched him in the preseason or training camp or in the regular season should know that he's played both sides. Most backup outside linebackers in the Steelers system have to be able to play both sides because they've typically gone only 3 deep outside linebacker, 1 backup behind the 2 starters. So when one of the starters comes out, you got to be able to rotate in without having to flip the other guy. So anyone who's watched Danny should know that he has to rotate and be able to flip, and that's common for any Steelers outside linebacker that's a backup.
All right, outside of making the Miami Dolphins look like the New England Patriots, so Tomlin is good at doing that. He went on to speak a little bit about who else? Cameron Sutton and singing his praises and all. And boy, you want to talk about a guy that's having, and I think going back to some of the things that Cameron Sutton had done. Well, not only I think you mentioned him quite a few times during training camp, some reports this year, and then we saw him make really some good tackles. I think during the preseason, what stuck out the most, him and his angles and those kind of things. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I correct?
No, you're right. I said that he had his best camp ever and had one of the best camps of anyone at Latrobe this year. He was fantastic, and he's carried that over. And
boy, has he carried it over into the season. Now, he still only played 100, right around, I guess, 100 snaps or so like that. But, he leads the team in passes defense with 5 right now. And, of course, he has one of the team's interceptions so far. This is a guy that and Mike Tomlin said during his press conference, this guy that you can move around right now. And I still remember back to the after the draft and the comments made by Colbert and Tomlin about that pre-pro day film session that they had with him, and then the Stoops was, I think, the defensive coordinator at the time over there at Tennessee, singing the praises of him and all, and just thinking to myself, man, this is a guy that really, really, really heady type player, William Gay-esque like. And boy, if he could really start making some plays on the football field, maybe become a very integral part of the defense. Now, obviously, he kind of bit by the injury bug during his rookie season and all, but this is a guy that right now, it's hard not to get him on the field in some capacity, right?
Right, and that's why they've actively worked to get him in the lineup, whether that's primarily right now been in passing situations in their dime defense. Will they replace Sutton in the slot and rotate out Mike Hilton, and he's played very, very well there. Yeah, Sutton's shown that versatility forever. Go back to the Senior Bowl where they moved him around. He was playing a lot of safety down in Mobile to try to showcase his versatility, and I think he did a nice job of that. I'm sure that's so tough to be Senior Bowl, new environment, new coaching staff, new playbook, and then you play at a new position and trying to pick that up. He thought he did a really nice job, had a good week down there, and he's played everything in Pittsburgh, whether that's outside, inside, dime, a little bit of safety. This guy's got a really sharp football IQ, and that's allowing him the chance to get on the field.
How much dime do you have the Steelers down for right now?
I haven't. I charted it the first month of the year. They're around. They've reduced it significantly, which I was expecting coming into this year with better depth at inside linebacker. They're around 10 or 15% dime this year.
Do you think we'll start seeing an uptick a little bit in that?
Well, the issue isn't with Sutton and dime. The issue is with the dime defender itself, which right now is Cam Kelly, who's struggling pretty mightily. So, they didn't use it for a couple weeks. They brought it back the last 2 weeks to some mixed results. Ideally, you want to be able to use it because you want to be able to have 6 DBs out there for third and long, obvious pass situations as opposed to inside linebacker. But I think it's going to end up around 15 to 20% usage this year as opposed to around, I think, 37% last year. So I think a sizable reduction, and that's a good thing because I think that that speaks to the quality of your inside linebacker play.
Yeah, and we're assuming you get both Hayden and Steven Nelson on the field Monday night, assuming Mike Hilton is healthy enough to play and well too. It still might be hard to get Sutton on the field some.
Well, he'll be used in that dime role, where he's not the dime defender. He's the slot corner in dime packages or really any sort of obvious pass situations, I should say. I'm not sure if it's exclusively in dime. But to circle back to the point I made last week is that the issue in dime defense isn't Sutton being out there. He should be out there. The issue is with Cam Kelly being out there who's struggling. So I think you would have Mike Hilton play that role, and then hopefully when Sean Davis comes back, assuming Sean Davis comes back, he becomes that dime defender again.
Let's see. Where else should we go here? Talking about Mike Tomlin and with the trade deadline right around the corner and all. He was asked, are teams, including the Steelers, more willing to make trades and take on guys in the middle of the season? He says, I can't speak for the National Football League or what is going on globally. I know that we are not major players in that market, but when we are, it is because we probably coveted that particular player in the draft. We had a level of comfort about who they are as football men, but also who they are as people, and had a certain level of comfort with that. That has probably been the instance with us, that we felt like we have done the work even prior to the trade discussion, because most of those instances we look hard at those men prior to the draft in which they came out. So in other words, they're not going to make any trades.
Yeah, they've made their trades. They got Minka, they got Vanette. What more do you want in a year? I mean, that's just bonkers for the way this team operates. So then that's rings true with what Tomlin says, because they like Minka coming out, they like Vanette coming out, they got a chance to acquire them, and they do so. So they're not going to make any trades. I don't want them to be buyers at the deadline. If anything, you're going to be sellers. I don't think they're going to make any moves at all, but certainly not going to buy at this point. They've made their aggressive moves. They're not going to make one more.
I know fans don't like that, but I mean, that's why you kind of roll your eyes when you see all these articles come out. Steelers are going to go after probably Emmanuel Sanders, or should go after Emmanuel Sanders, should go after this, should go after that. Hey, they don't have the cap space to go for the higher price guys right now. And it's just not who they are. Now, yeah, they went after Minka Fitzpatrick. They went after Nick Vanette, but those guys are, A, very affordable, and B, as Mike Tomlin said, those are guys that the Steelers coveted long before the draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they're going to stand pat at the deadline, buy or sell. Is that fair to say?
I would expect so, unless there's just a low end, guy, a guy with maybe a year or two, maybe that they coveted that may, I don't know, maybe a defensive lineman or something along those lines. I don't think it's going to be earth shattering if they were to buy here.
No, it's to be a little surprising to me, just based on giving up more draft capital for the future. I think they're going to stand pat. I mean, they usually do. I mean, it's a pretty safe assessment and statement to make right now. But if somehow they lose to Miami and they're 2-5, then the season's over, and I am pushing Hargrave super hard at the last second to try to get something for him.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing. If you were to somehow, God forbid, lose to the Dolphins Monday night, you really have to consider trying to push Hargrave out the door.
Yeah, and I posed the question yesterday, and maybe we can have a very brief discussion on it, because I don't want to dwell on hypotheticals too much. But even if you beat Miami, or let's assume that today some NFC team comes calling and offering a second-round pick in the 2020 draft for Javon Hargrave, would you do it?
Man, that's tough. Like I think you broached me with that the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'd be hard to turn that down.
It would. I mean, obviously the con is that, the season, you're basically declaring the season over at that point, but it's fair to say that the odds of making the playoffs are low there, but they're low, and then winning the Super Bowl is, basically a 0% chance of that. So what are you playing for at this point? So it'd be really tough to turn down. Yeah, absolutely.
I imagine they might have already probably got a call or two about him. I wouldn't be surprised, because, right. I mean, we've seen teams look in today's NFL. It doesn't seem like teams on these bigger name players even are afraid to maybe go out and give a third round pick for a player for a half a year rental to turn around and get the compensatory value maybe on the back end, even if they weren't able to sign him.
Right, and that segues well into the trades that happen around the league, and why I think you could offer in teams. I think Hargrave's worth a second-round pick, because the trades we've just seen, Mohamed Sanu going for a second-round pick.
I thought that was high. I was surprised. Yeah. I was surprised by that. But
I guess for New England, they're thinking it's a late second-round pick, because obviously they're going to have a very low pick, and it's almost going to be a third-round pick. And if it gets you a Super Bowl ring, then hey, it's worth it. Belichick trades back so much anyway; they probably have the draft capital to make a higher give up that kind of draft pick for him. But yeah, Conley going for a third. Emmanuel Sanders going for a third and a fourth. I think they're also sending a fifth-round pick. Denver is. But anyway, I mean, it's pretty high prices for those guys. So I think Hargrave is absolutely worth a second-round pick. And you have to assume that team is willing and able and planning on re-signing him to a big contract after the season. Fine. But it's been – the NFL has become a lot more active in terms of trades than it has, 10 years ago.
Boy, how old's Mohamed Sanu now?
30? I think he's 30.
He got to be, right? I've always liked Mohamed Sanu. Always thought, but I've always viewed him as the second guy, a potential good second guy. But I mean, you look at some of his yards per separation so far this year. It's kind of off the roof, you know. Never probably was utilized correctly with the Falcons in that offense. But on the flip side, I just wonder what's the news market going to be on the backside where he's going to give you much of a compensatory value out the back door. I suppose maybe he can, I don't know, turn around and get 30 or 40 catches and a couple of touchdowns here in the second half of the season. That might even still be a little bit shooting too high, and then to help his value, and then some team overpays him, that kind of thing there. But
well, his comp value is going to be limited because doesn't that age 30 rule kick in where you can't get?
Oh, that's right. That's fifth. That's fifth, right?
Yeah. So
that's right.
I think their plan is just not for the comp thing. It's just they're going to help you win right now, and they're going to help you try to win a Super Bowl.
And I guess that'd be the same with Emmanuel Sanders too, right?
Correct. Yeah. That's that old. What Steeler was that we found that out about?
Was it Jarvis?
No. Jarvis Jones? No. It was someone that was 30 plus that we thought was going to get a high comp pick. Then
Lawrence Timmons.
Was it Timmons?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Timmons.
Yeah. So they're not playing. You can't play the comp pick game with those guys, but absolutely, Sanu's going to throw like 2 touchdown passes this year. They're going to use him as a gadget player and a lot of that wacky stuff. Like he's going to throw a touchdown in the Super Bowl or something. I mean, that's going to be the end game for Mohamed Sanu.
We'll probably see another trade or two along the way here, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think what's ones I missed. Quandre Diggs going to Seattle, which the Lions locker room did not like. A lot of blowback there. I don't know if there's any other ones that I missed, but pretty active deadline.
All right, anything else on the Tomlin presser that stuck out to you there?
No, that was about it. I'm just curious to see the injury report because Tomlin was a little more vague with it than usual. So I'm just really curious to see that initial injury report and see who's going to be limited, who's going to be full, who's going to be sitting out. It sounds like most of these guys are going to be practicing in some capacity, and we'll go from there.
And Tomlin was sort of asked a backdoor question about compensatory picks and all like that, kind of hinting at look, we saw the Ravens part ways with a good special teams player in Bethel, who, by the way, it's okay when Bill Belichick goes after a primary, just a special teams ace, though, right? It's not okay when the Steelers keep a player for special teams value, right?
Yeah, the context here is the Patriots signed Justin Bethel, and who do the Patriots play this week? The Ravens. More Belichick Jedi mind games.
Yeah, but I mean, this is also, remember, this is a Patriots team too. Not to turn this into the Patriots Depot podcast, but and we're going to talk a little bit more about them maybe in a minute anyway. This is a Patriots team that lost one of their key special teams player in the preseason there, or first week or something along the. No, it was right there in the preseason there. That I forget his name. One of the linebackers there had to go down with a knee injury there. So make no mistake about Bill Belichick. He values special teams players. I mean, look at who's the wide receiver over there.
Matthew Slater, been there for 10 years.
I mean, geez. I mean, that guy, you think they use that guy much on offense? No, but that guy can get down on special teams. He's a heady player on top of it, kind of Darius Bay-esque times 3. I mean, he's that good. Who was the one, the running back the Bengals kept forever?
Cedric Pierman.
Yeah, Cedric Pierman was another one. Look, special teams matters, and I wonder what the narrative is with them getting Bethel now. And you don't expect Bethel to play any on defense for the Patriots, do you?
No, I played 14 snaps in Baltimore on defense. Yeah, he's a special teams guy, but a good one. He's a really good special teams player. Presbyterian.
Yeah, I want to make sure I get that jab in there. But
we'll talk about the Patriots some more because you wanted to bring up their historic numbers defensively and in the context of the schedule. I don't know exactly how you want to frame it, but feel free to talk about it.
Yeah, look, and we've talked about it before, and with the adjusted net yards per passing attempt, and then even when we were even remember way back when we were previewing the game against the Patriots and the Steelers, thinking about, man, this defense. Just really look. The questions we had, I think, ahead of that game was what's the Patriot, what's the Patriots offense going to look like this year?
Mm-hmm.
with the moving parts at wide receiver and those kind of things like that. Well, their defense really is more than answered the bell. You saw what they did to the look. Shutting out any team in the NFL, like it or not, is a huge accomplishment, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, people say, well, look at their cupcake schedule, and boy, the Patriots haven't made. Hey, this is a rotating schedule. The league's been on a rotating schedule for a while, so it's not like they get any primo help there. Some will say, well, yeah, but they play in the AFC East. All right, that's not their fault, when it comes to that. And then the other two unknown games every year are against teams that finish first in the division, whatever the rotation is on that as well too. So I mean, they're beating the teams that they have to play. Now, has the quality of maybe, let's say, the quarterback play against the teams that they played so far been there? No. Not overall, but I mean, regardless, for them, at this point of the season, to have an adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat under 1, I'm drawing a blank of the last time I've seen such.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what is the record for a full season? What's the lowest?
I think you have to go back to the Buccaneers in 2000 whatever
two
or whatnot, when it was under 3.
So the Patriots are just blowing that out of the water.
I mean, they're just blowing it out of water. I mean, look at the scores this year: 33-3, 43-0, 30-14. How the hell did the Jets score 14 points on them?
They were defensive touchdowns, right? Those weren't offensive touchdowns, I don't believe.
Let's look and see
check
how your memory is.
Yeah, we'll see. I remember there was some cat. There was
okay,
some
yeah, you're good on you, young Alex. Mallet had and it was 30-0 at one point during that game. Late in the third quarter, they got Mallet fumble recovery in the end zone. Was that a block punt or something?
I think there was a block punt. Yeah.
I don't remember, but they also had a Jamal Adams 60. Oh yeah, that's when they put that backup quarterback in, right?
Jared Stidham.
Stidham, He threw the pick 6, and then didn't Belichick yank him back out real quick.
I think he got Cody Kessler or something
on that. So okay, there's that. Kudos to you for remembering.
So how
that.
many points did the defense give up? They didn't allow any points that game, right? Defensively.
Correct.
Okay.
Let me go back through these again here. The Steelers, they did not allow a touchdown. The Jets, they shut out 43-0. They did not allow a touchdown to the Jets, offensive touchdown. 16-10 over the Bills. Did they allow what was the touchdown in that Bills game?
You'd have to look. I think it was an offensive touchdown Buffalo scored. You'd have to check the box score.
Yeah, Allen 1-yard run.
Okay.
In the third quarter there. Let's see, who else have they played? The Redskins 33-7. The Giants, we saw what happened there, 35-14, and then the Jets 33-0. Look, and I mean, I guess the hardest part of their schedule now, I guess you would say, is coming up. But I mean, what do we expect them to do to the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, or Baltimore the week after.
I mean, is containing Lamar Jackson the biggest test Bill Belichick will have this year?
Probably. I think that's likely fair to say, until you get the playoffs at least.
I mean, they play the Eagles after the bye. They play the Cowboys. Who knows what you're going to get there from the Cowboys. The Chiefs, I mean, one would think they would hopefully they get Patrick Mahomes back by then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that might be the biggest test.
And then they close out against the Bengals, the Bills. I mean, at the rate they're going, they're going to have the AFC East locked up probably by
Well, I guess
Thanksgiving.
Buffalo is having a good year record wise. So, but they're going to still win the AFC. New England is obviously
right. Where does all this? Do you think the league is biased against the biased in favor of New England?
I don't know. I mean, you had the whole Deflategate stuff that Tom Brady gets suspended for. They're not biased in any significant way in terms of the in-season results. So, and the stuff that really matters, I mean, no, they're not.
I mean, I admit that pass interference play against, who was it, the Giants a few weeks ago. Of course, but you go around the league and
You've seen that everywhere.
Around the league and kind of question that. Is it better for the league, for the Patriots, to win it all every year?
I don't know, maybe not to win it all every year, but to be basically the top team heading into every playoff race. Yeah, I think so, because everyone wants a good villain, and it's just it's that dynasty that I think kind of creates that allure for fans to watch, to love or to hate.
Right, but that's where it ends, right? Is the villain aspect.
Yeah, obviously, either you're a giant Patriots fan, you love the team, or you hate or you hate New England, you hate what they're doing and how dominant they've been. So I guess it gives you a reason to watch, whether you're doing it because you love the team or because you hate the team.
I just think it's so amazing what that defense has done this year. And yeah, we already went down the list of opponents they played. And let's see if they can keep it up during it. I mean, you're going to play some better quarterbacks. Obviously, I mean, I don't know if Mayfield falls into that category just yet or not. This will be a huge test for Mayfield. I mean, they're gonna embarrass him just like they did Sam Darnold.
Yeah, the way they're picking off passes, they got 19 picks as defense. They've only allowed one passing touchdown the entire year. New England's defense has. It's remarkable.
That's nuts. And being able to contain Lamar Jackson will be something. Then you get quarterbacks. You get look, they'll have a good test of some quarterbacks in Wentz, in Dak Prescott, and of course Houston and Kansas City with Mahomes there. So. But it just floors me how good that and people say, well, they're opportunistic and it all plays into it when it goes back to the thing once again. You know how hard it is to damn shut out a team in the NFL, and they've got two of them already, and they probably should have a couple more right now. And I won't be surprised if they add one or two more on this in the second half of their season there. So my question is just, man, can anybody play with them?
Not looking like it right now, but my focus has just been on Pittsburgh and just trying to win a game to beat Miami. But everyone's trying to catch New England.
All right, I share a birthday with Bill Belichick, so that's part of where my genius comes in at. All right, that'll do it with the Patriots part of the podcast. But look, the only reason we bring this up is because it's just historical right now with as well in a passing league with the rules they are today and all. It's just phenomenal, the stats, and that's why I actually bet on put my money with the Jets the other night, thinking, man, that they got to start giving up something pass wise. Well, they didn't.
Yep, they didn't. The Jets will always be the Jets. All right, Dave. Anything else you want to talk Steelers wise? Or you want to jump into some reader emails?
Yeah, it seems like we're missing something here, though, isn't it? No?
It kind of felt like that. I have an article or a video on Bud Dupree this morning. Kind of shows his improvement from 2018 to 2019, his hand use, his power, I think overall health have all been impressive things to help create this career year that he's on track to have.
All right, I guess with that, maybe we should get to the emails here. I think we're missing something, but oh well. Let's see. Azim Washington writes in, you guys always do a great job, but come on, Dave, stop fretting about the Ravens. They are an average team who only wins if they have a lead. They aren't beating the Patriots. We still have a chance to take the North with a little good health and luck. Wasn't I mediocre on the Ravens at the beginning of the season anyway, thinking that okay, maybe at best it's going to be a 9-17.
Yeah, I was a lot higher on them than you were.
All right, so I don't know if Azim maybe has me confused with you, which how in the hell could you do that? Look, I'm surprised they beat the Seahawks.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm shocked by it. I think I picked Seattle in that game, but I know the Baltimore is always going to be a good team. I mean, you can downplay the Ravens, but how much longer do you want to do that? You want to do that in Week 16 when the Ravens have clinched the AFC North and talk about how the Ravens aren't that good of a team. They keep winning games. They're got one of the most electrifying players in football in Lamar Jackson, and they're 5-2, and the Steelers are 2-4. So if the Ravens aren't a good team, then what does that make Pittsburgh?
Azim, I hope we're not fretting about the Ravens. I hope they go on a losing streak here. I expected that losing streak, honestly, to have begun against Seattle. And now they did lose McPhee for the season to triceps or something like that. So that's obviously going to be a big blow for that defense. My view on them is You can play against that defense, and B, if you can figure out a way to not let Lamar Jackson gash you with his feet, you can stop him offensively. And the Seahawks obviously didn't do themselves any favors by Russell Wilson throwing his first interception of the year that went for a pick six, and then the rookie wide receiver putting the ball on the ground and letting it be returned for a touchdown.
Right.
So I don't get we're fretting about the Ravens. I mean, look, we should fret about the Ravens right now because of where they are. But I still think they're an average team, though.
Well, I think they're a little better than that, but we'll find out when they play New England. We'll get
Danielle, my buddy Danielle Russell writes back in from Australia. Good day, Alex, Dave and Alex. I was wondering if you have any idea how Vanette is doing. Knowing what you know now, would you have made the trade today? P.S. I love the jokes giving Alex the credit for points that Dave has made. Made me chuckle.
With Fournette, yeah, I think he's been good. He does the dirty work well that a lot of college tight ends, a lot of young tight ends don't do until you get in the league and you're in it for a couple years. Play, with your hand down plays, an inline tight end, pass protect, run block, take on 4-3 ends. I think he's done that fine. Obviously, there hasn't been a whole lot of chance for him to get involved as a receiver. I think his hands have been good. Made some tough catches, made some difficult adjustments to the football. So that's all been fine. Would I do the trade? Probably not, because with the way the season is and not looking like it's going to go the way that you wanted to and giving up that 5th-round pick. My stance remains the same. Is you better be able to re-sign him after the year, otherwise this looks like a disaster of a trade. And I'm sure their hope and intention is to re-sign him, and maybe there's a good chance that they will, but it's still not within their control with him being an unrestricted free agent. So that's just my concern, is that if you lose him after this year, then you've just thrown away a 5th-round pick.
Well, I think his story. I think post-bye his story's yet to be written here. I think you're going to see a lot more heavier groupings moving forward, especially when Rosie gets back.
Yeah, well, I think he'll do fine in that role. I think we know enough about him in Seattle and his short time in Pittsburgh to kind of know that he's a competent tight end that can block and play that role fine.
He's a number 2 tight end, though.
Yep, yeah, he's not a dynamic. He's not going to offer a whole lot in the pass game. He's limited, but what he does well enough.
Danielle, look, I look forward to really looking to see how the second half of the season goes on with him before passing final judgment on this. I do think, though, I will be surprised if they don't get him re-up somehow, some way.
Well, he could just say, I don't want to be in Pittsburgh. I want to go back to Seattle for all we know. I mean, it's not like Vanette voluntarily came to Pittsburgh. He got traded there, and he may either want more money or just not want to play in Pittsburgh. Who knows?
I still think they figure out a way with him. So put me down in the notebook for that. Jay writes in, which of these 3 wide, it's entitled Young Money Crew. Which of these 3 wide receivers had the biggest impact with the team or teams they played with? Antonio Cash Money Brown, Mike Fast Money Wallace, or Emmanuel Easy Money Sanders? AB turned into the best stats is the easy answer. So let's look at the whole man picture. Great teammate, helped younger players, defense had to account for, etc. Keep up the great podcasts and articles. Enjoyed the recent article on Tuzar Skipper with the Giants. Now that he is released, ... question mark. Jay, I couldn't have timed that article any better if I tried. There, and I'm glad you enjoyed it there. Look, we could throw Mike Wallace out of the equation, right?
Yeah, that's the easy one. I mean, AB was the most talented player, and Sanders doesn't come close to that, but if you want to look at it from an off-field leader teammate perspective, Emmanuel Sanders was a million times better teammate than Antonio Brown ever was.
Right. I guess it becomes how much value do you want to put on? And look, I mean, he helped. He got himself a Super Bowl ring, right? Was part of a Super Bowl team.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to go AB. I know it's easy to probably say not AB just because of everything that's happened. But, I mean, AB was a Hall of Fame talent that won you so many games, and I think that still outweighs Sanders being a good dude, which he genuinely is, and a good receiver, too, but not anywhere close to AB's level.
I would agree with you. I mean, there is just highlight upon. I mean, we literally run out of superlatives to describe some of the things Antonio Brown did. It's a shame things went the way it went, but that's life in the NFL. Mike Tomlin,
you see, he's probably going to lose his grievance to Oakland because he sent text messages to Mark Davis saying, release me.
I wouldn't be surprised, and I would hope that that's the outcome.
Yep. Crazy.
That guy might never play in the NFL again.
I still think he'll end up in a camp somewhere next year, but who knows how long he'll last or how that will go. That's obviously very much
You're
in
not
question.
giving him a lot of guaranteed money, that's for sure.
No, not at all.
Dennis Diaz writes in, practice squad talent. This is a good question, Alex. It is getting close to the time that some teams look for talent off practice squads. Is there a talent that could help the Steelers? I'm assuming he's talking about the Steelers practice squad alone.
I don't know if he was saying about other practice squads the Steelers could poach somebody off of. I'm not sure what he means.
Yeah, we'd like to try to be as thorough as possible, but I gotta admit, I haven't been scouting other teams' practice squads.
Yeah, me neither. And on the Steelers practice squad, anyone that could help you, I mean, not really. Call up a Derwin Gray or a Patrick Morris. Alexander Myers plays some special teams for you, but I mean, it's really Robert Spillane had a good preseason, but you're not going to get a whole lot of help from. I mean, I guess Marcus Allen, if you ever lost a safety, he's still on the practice squad. That's probably your biggest name on the Steelers taxi squad.
I tell you that Henry Mondo's always in that limited snaps, that he played during the preseason, kind of a fascinating. Guy, one that maybe can get after the quarterback there. I would think, a guy that could potentially even make it up and maybe contribute in some form or fashion. I'd still probably go back to Spillane just because maybe injuries or whatnot, and him having to help out on special teams.
I'd go Marcus Allen. I'd even maybe consider Allen in that dime role if Kelly continues to struggle. I think he did okay with that the Chargers game last year, and he plays better closer to the line of scrimmage.
Really, Tevin Jones is probably the best bet out of all these, because if they move on from Moncrief, and you want to fill that with another wide receiver,
That's a good point. And he can play special teams.
And he can play special teams, and he's done a couple of nice things during the preseason in the past. So maybe that's the guy is he the kind of guy that's likely to get robbed by another team?
No one's touching. He was on the practice squad last year. No one.
Yeah, probably not. So I think they're looking pretty, at least on paper, in pretty decent shape there. Let's see if I got anything else in here. Oh, Mark Walters writes in and says, please explain in an episode why this stat is so significant, talking about adjusted net yards per passing attempt. Look, here's the nut and bolts when it comes to why I'm so fascinated with the adjusted net yards per passing attempts, because it's kind of an encompassed passing stat, that, if you will, that takes in interceptions, TDs, sack yardage, passing attempts, and sacks, and those are obviously all huge when it comes to the passing game here. And I have just found it to be good from a predictive standpoint too. After about week 6 or week 7, obviously you can't use it earlier than that, because one good game against a bad team can slant, can really change, like with most stats. You just don't have a sample size large enough. But I think once you get past about week 6, 7, especially about the midpoint way of the season, you get a good idea of not only how good a team's offensive passing game is, from sacks, from interceptions, touchdowns, completion percentage, those kind of things, but a defense as well too. And that's why, and when it comes to from a predictive, I really look at it from a defensive standpoint more than anything. I like to look at it on the offensive standpoint, don't get me wrong. But defense, man, over the years, if you get to the halfway point of the season, and if you do not have a defensive adjusted net yards per passing attempt number under 6, you're not going to the Super Bowl. You're not winning the Super Bowl.
Right, yeah, you showed a really good correlation. The Steelers are, 5.8? Is that what you said?
Yeah, and you hate to cherry pick, but if you take out that game against the Patriots, it dips down under 5. So and then you look at teams, and another thing to look at here, what's his name? Mark, is I always like to pay attention to the differential of the two. So what you do is you take the team's offensive number and their defensive number, and you find the differential of the two, and you hope that your offensive number is higher than your defensive number for obvious reasons. You hope your offensive passing game is better than your defensive passing game, but at the same time, you hope that your defensive number is under 6, if that makes any sense there. And the larger that gap is, theoretically, the more dominant of a team that you have. Makes sense, right, Alex?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if you get into week 8 or beyond of the season, no matter how good or bad you are in both areas there, if you do not have a positive differential in adjusted net yards per passing attempt, forget about it. Now, we've seen teams make the playoffs and all with a negative number before, but they're not winning it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
In today's passing world, passing league, it's all about how you can pass and how you can defend the pass. And that's why when you get into that's why I made the call last year about don't sleep on the Patriots. Because that adjusted net yards per passing attempt number, they finally got a hold of it in the second half of the season. That thing started to come down. It got right there below that 6 number. I said, hey, don't sleep on them. That's going to end up because I am a firm believer still to this day that, you need a good offense to get you into the playoffs. But at some point during the playoffs, for 1, maybe 2 games, you're going to need your defense to win a game.
Well, I think about that Colts team back in, what was that? What year? Or late 2000, 2009, whatever year that was. The Bob Sanders led team, where that Colts defense struggled so much during the year, and by the playoffs they got healthy. They got Bob Sanders back, and that defense really took off and helped really lead that team to the Super Bowl.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Oh, I'm getting my years mixed up. Let me look here. It was that year where Bob Sanders. I know Bob Sanders was always hurt, but he missed most of the year. The defense
was it the year they won the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
2006, right?
Was it 2006? Man, I get my years way mixed up here. Let me look here. What they did in the playoffs that year. Yeah, they beat Kansas City in the wild card 23-8. They beat Baltimore 15-6. There was a high scoring game against the Patriots in the conference championship 38-34, but then they held it there 17 in the Super Bowl. So that defense, they struggled so much during the year where they were like, do I have a stat here for what their defense did the entire year? They were 23rd in points per game during the year, and those first 2 playoff games, they really tightened things up and helped lead them to the Super Bowl.
What do you suppose you're not looking, are you?
They're adjusted net yards.
Right.
No, I'm not looking. No, I don't know.
If you had to guess what their end of the regular season, the 2006 Colts adjusted net yards per passing attempt number was that year, what would you guess?
I think it would be over 6. I'm guessing it'd be like 6.5 to 7.
It was 5.
It was 5? Wow.
5 evens. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 teams with the lower number. Actually, the Vikings had a 5 too, but by decimal points, they had just beat out the Colts that year. But look, Mark, a lot of people say I obsess over that stat way too much. Well, sure, I've been known to obsess over certain insignificant things, maybe more so than others, but I really think it's a reflective stat. But if you want to learn out more about it, go to Pro Football. Go to Pro Football. Easy for me to say. Pro Football Reference, and look in their glossary of terms, and you'll see the adjusted net yards per attempt formula broken down, and then there's a link there from Chase Stewart. That's a nice article that's several years old by now, kind of explaining the significance of that. But I really think it's a great stat, and especially from a predictive standpoint. And look, I mean, the Steelers, they should lower their number from here on out. And if the Steelers are going to get back in this thing and rattle off, I don't know, what are you looking for first? 2 games, a 2-game winning streak. Well, actually, it'd be a 3-game winning streak if they knock off the Dolphins and then the Colts there. That number is going to have to stay low, and it's going to have to be even lower after they come out of the game against the Rams. They're going to want a chance to get back into this thing.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's see, what else do we have here on the email front? How long are we into this thing now?
Hour 20 or so.
All right, a name to keep an eye on from Brogan from Iowa City. Just listen to the Mondays podcast, and you talked about KC being at the Iowa game, a name Dave wrote about and could be a fit to replace Sean Davis is Geno Stone. Yeah, I did put Geno Stone's name in that article. Probably the best player on Iowa's defense this year, including Epinesa. Keep an eye on him. Good work as always, David Eyes. I don't know anything about Geno Stone. Do you? I know that he was a name on, I think, Pro Football Focus's top 75, and that's why he made his way into the article there. Do you know much about Geno Stone?
No, I don't right now, but we'll see. I mean, safety's going to have to be addressed, but obviously in terms of starters, you have Minka, you have Edmonds, you're good there. The depth is going to be definitely a big question mark. I don't know how high you're going to invest on a safety in that respect, though you might for dime packages too. But, that's why you did the trade for Fitzpatrick, because you knew Davis was going to be gone after this year. And if you didn't trade for Fitzpatrick, you'd be using that first-round pick on a safety anyway.
Nate writes in, request to explain 2020 Steelers salary cap. May I bother you please explain what the Steelers 2020 cap room situation is at the moment again? I heard you go over it, but was in bewilderment about how wrong I was about it. I had a delusion that the Steelers would have a little more cap space, less Antonio Brown. Are there any possible wide receiver free agents that you would like the Steelers to go after in the offseason? Thank you for your help for the incredible podcast. Thanks for the kind words, Nate. You want to address, it's just way too early to be thinking about free agencies and wide receivers, right?
Yeah, I don't have any name in particular. I haven't spent a second thinking about those things yet.
All right, you're asking about salary cap here. Even with the Steelers flushing with the players that they have under contract right now, which currently sits in 2020, I believe at 40. Is it 39 or 40? 40 players under contract right now. They have, based on a $200 million cap number in 2020, which seems to be the projections people have right now. And now, mind you, this is only 40 players under contract. This is not a flushed out rule of 51 because they don't have 51. But even at the number that they have right now, wait a minute, did I flush that even more? Okay, they're right around $2 million under. Okay, and then now when you add in the $3 million, whatever they have currently left over in 2019, which obviously they can roll over. We don't know what that final number is going to be. We don't know what moves. You would think still they're going to be in a position, hopefully, where they're going to roll over about $3 million or so. So that technically puts them at about $5 million under. But then when you consider that you still have to flush out the rest of your rule of 51. There with 11 more players at an average cost of, let's say, just $500,000 each. I mean, let's even take it 10 times $500,000. That's $5 million, right? If my math is right. So it just ate up. So now you're at zero, and you haven't even done anything. Okay. People are saying, well. I thought Antonio Brown being gone is going to free up some space there. Okay, yeah, it does, but let's not forget that you signed Ben Roethlisberger to a lucrative contract. He's got a $33.5 million cap hit next year.
Yeah.
Okay, you got Tuitt, 14.9. Remember, Tuitt was one of those guys they just restructured, right?
Yeah, that's the problem with kicking the can down the road.
Okay, you got a $14.9 million cap number with Tuitt. DeCastro, you got a 13.6 number. Now here's where you people get too caught up in the where are we now aspect of this. Is because, man, this is going to change radically by the time March rolls around. And let me tell you why. Cameron Hayward has a $13.2 million cap number right now for 2020, which is scheduled to be his final year of his current contract. We all expect Cameron Hayward to sign a contract extension before next March or by the start of the regular season at the latest, right, Alex?
Yeah, and so that's going to lower his cap hit, right?
Right.
For the first year?
So let's even say you only get about a $3 million relief there. But that's $3 million right there. Alex, what's going to happen with Mark Barron during the offseason?
Probably going to get the HEFO, the old John Bostic treatment.
All right, so there's $5.25 million I got you in March. So keep a running total for me here. $3 million with Hayward,
Yep.
$5.25 million for Mark Barron. What is going to happen with Anthony Chickillo, Alex?
He gone.
He's not going to make it past March. He might not make it to next Monday.
Mm-hmm.
That's $5 million. Keep a running total for me, Alex.
I'm doing it. I'm adding it up.
Take your shoes off.
All right.
Alex, what's going to happen to Dante Moncrief between now and next March?
Goodbye, Dante Moncrief.
All right, throw $4 million on the pile.
Okay.
Alex, what's going to happen to this? It gets kind of questionable here. What's going to happen with Tyson Alualu?
Yeah, that's more questionable. Let's just assume he stays on the roster for right now.
All right,
Alex, how much would you save if you did cut him?
2.75.
All right, I'll put that in the other tab.
All right, Alex, what's going to happen with Ramon Foster between now and March?
I still think he stays, but I understand why you're getting to the point about asking the question.
Okay. Let's say he stays. Let's say Alualu stays. How much money have I trimmed off for you?
Now, before Lulu and Foster, you were at $17.2 million cleared up.
Wow.
So a decent amount of change, but now you do have to replace that with, you got to find another inside linebacker and another receiver and potentially, but it'd be cheaper to do.
Let me ask you, what are you doing with Vance McDonald?
Oh, you're keeping Vance. What are you getting at?
I mean, is he a lock at over $6 million cap hit? I mean,
yeah, just still trying to find tight ends.
Does he still need to earn? I mean, what if you put that money back into a contract with Vanette and then went out and drafted you a tight end?
With what pick? What pick are you drafting?
It obviously had to be a second or third round pick, Alex. But
rookie tight ends it take forever to develop. No, Vance has played well enough, unless there's some sort of big health concern. This team's had such a hard time trying to find consistency at tight end. Vance has been able to bring that. I'm not interested in doing anything with Vance other than keeping him.
Now, obviously, you have guys that we'll have to see what happens. Juju, we would think, is going to get a contract, right?
Connor.
And maybe Connor. I think the jury's still out on Connor, to be honest with
Watt?
you. No, that's not time yet because he's got a fifth-year option coming up and all like that. So,
I wonder if he would want that new deal because he can now negotiate a deal right after 3 years in.
Yeah, I still don't think unless you could get him at a bargain.
Well, I'm just saying we might come to Pittsburgh and be like, hey, you better pay me, guys.
I don't think I'm not so worried about that.
All right, so you're at $17 million in cap space. That gives you a little bit of flexibility. You still got to obviously go through your roster round out depth, which is going to kind of eat things up pretty good here. But you'll have a little flexibility. It won't be like last year though. Or this past year with the Nelson, Barron, Moncrief signings, they won't have that much financial freedom, right?
No, they shouldn't. I mean, they're not going to. I don't think you'll see a repeat as far as flurry of activity like you saw these last 2 years. And really, I mean, the year before that from a cap perspective, it really wasn't that taxing with the Bostics and the Burnett's and those kind of things,
I mean, is it fair to question how this team is going to be able to retool with limited draft capital and not great financial flexibility? I mean, where you can maybe make one mid-tier signing and then maybe one or two low-tier signings. Is it fair to say this team's going to have a lot of holes and not a ton of options to fill them?
But don't we say that every year?
I wasn't saying it last year. I mean, you knew they could make the moves in free agency, and they had a lot of draft picks. I mean, it feels different. It feels very different than last year, where they entered the offseason with 10 draft picks and a ton of cap space. What's
your primary free agent positional target as you sit here right now?
Well, I mean, it depends what happens at outside linebacker. What is Dupree's future? That's the first place my mind goes. The second place my mind goes is at nose tackle with the presumed loss of Javon Hargrave. So those are the first two positions that come to mind in terms of we got to address it.
All right, but generally, when it comes to more, 40% snap guys that would fit the mold of a nose tackle for the Steelers, you're not going to be giving up an arm and a leg for those guys in free agency.
No, but you're paying, the free agency's never going to be cheap. I mean, you're probably paying.
I'm not looking at the cash aspect. I'm looking at it from a cap standpoint.
All right. Well, I mean,
because the first year of a I don't know, $4 million per year. I mean, what's a good decent price for a guy that would fit what the Steelers would do in terms of average yearly value contract for, let's throw Andrew Billings' name in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking like $5 million a year.
All right. Well, the cap number on that's going to be considerably lower than that,
Sure.
so you're not taxing
Sure.
yourself from the cap, from the cap aspect.
Yeah, I mean,
shouldn't be.
right, but it's not just about the money. It's just about making sure you find the talent too, and trying to do something similar to what Hargrave can do. You're not going to get the same guy because Hargrave's such a rare player. But it's less about the money than it is finding the talent to build a Super Bowl competing roster.
I mean, might you go out and get another veteran receiver for, peel one off the bottom of the pile, again, like a Moncrief or whatnot, that's a possibility. That's not going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah, I guess the big thing is the outside linebacker spot. Like we mentioned earlier, what is the future of that position? It's very up in the air. Are you going to re-sign Dupree? I mean, yeah, you can get him maybe cheaper in that year one, but he's still going to be pretty expensive overall because it's going to be a hefty contract.
All right, so hopefully, maybe not. Hopefully eased his mind a little bit as far as cap. I'll have a full article up on this sooner rather than later, Nate. Always trying to work in that direction, but don't want to put it out there too early, with the way things can change.
And to be fair, even with the issues of draft capital, I mean, trading the first round pick for Minka made sense because if you weren't doing it, like I just said, this year you'd be taking a safety with a first or second round pick. Next year, the Devin Bush deal, if you didn't trade up and give up future draft capital for that, we'd be talking about the need for an inside linebacker. So I get why they made those moves. I mean, that one's the one I'm not crazy about, but it is a fifth round pick. It's not going to make or break your roster and the construction of it. But they're going to be limited next year. They're not going to have the same freedom, both draft capital nor financial flexibility that they enjoyed this past offseason.
Fair enough. But the landscape will change, and it will change quickly.
Yep, it always does. Fair enough.
And it will by March. And look, I expect maybe a Cameron Hayward deal by March, by the start of the new league year. I expect several of those guys we already talked about. Chickillo, Moncrief. Who else do we name? Barron.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are going to be gone.
Yeah.
And possibly Alualu as well too, up there in age. What about Vince? I think Vince is showing he's still got some weight, but is he $5 million worth $5 million in weight?
If you're cutting Barron, you're not also going to cut Vince. I don't think you're going to deplete your inside linebacker group like that in one swoop. And plus, I'm not really interested in cutting Vince either way.
All right, this one from Rick Benz, right? Said, just curious how and where you guys acquired your football knowledge from. I'm not asking you to sing your own praises. I'm just curious as how it came about that you guys are where you are today, talking Steelers for a living. Well, I guess it all started when I was 4 years old. No, in all seriousness, I've just always been a fan of the game, Rick, and obviously played, a lot of football as a kid up through high school. Grew up a Steelers fan. Obviously had a lot of knowledge about the working knowledge of the Steelers as a team in history, and football card collecting. Always, you always knew the stats and reading the box. My old man used to tell me, "Boy, don't read them box scores. They're never going to get you nowhere in life." Well, look at me now, old man. But always just being kind of a student from the statistical. I was always fascinated more, I think, from the statistical aspect first. And to be honest with you, I really didn't get heavier into the X's and O's until, I don't know, 2000-ish, right around there. But see, we didn't have the tape back then and all. And really up until just recently, having more and more tape and the dawn of the internet, and a lot of what I've learned has come from the internet, Rick, and just watching coaching seminars, and heck, Alex has taught me quite a bit over the years, just reading his own research and work, and I think he'll tell you along the same things, just reading and watching and learning, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be as far as my working football knowledge, especially from an X's and O's point. But man, it's a whole hell of a lot better than it was back in 2008 when I started this thing.
Yeah, mine's pretty similar, but it started with memorizing box scores. I used to tape Steelers games on my mom's VCR and go back and watch them and take notes just for myself. Wouldn't really share them with anybody. I wasn't even doing stuff really on the internet, but I grew up with ESPN message boards and other forums and stuff like that, and just kind of grew from there. So just always been part of my life.
And always, and obviously, Rick, with Alex and I doing what we do now for a living, we have the time to acquire more knowledge, or at least try to,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. And look, we make mistakes. We're not perfect on everything that we do by far. We're slowly, I think, getting better with draft analysis. It'd be great if we had just a total archive. I mean, we have more all 22 tape, obviously, than we had 2 years ago. But it'd be just nice to put on any game at a push buttons notice with college players and be able to get into the tape. And I think that's one area where I would like to see my growth and development go, is just from a player analysis from college into pro, draft analysis kind of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear you.
But that's how we got to kind of where we are. This one from getting the ball in Juju's hands from Rory Prunella. Hey guys, quick question. Apologies if this has been asked recently, but what are your thoughts on calling more screens, sweeps to try to get the ball into Juju's hands more? Anecdotally, it does not seem Fichtner calls nearly as many screens as Haley, for better or worse. Oh, we have someone calling for more screens now.
Hmm.
Look, they all have their place, Roy, for sure. And in today's NFL, especially where the wide receiver screen and stuff goes, a lot of it's part of the run pass option type stuff that we're seeing in the NFL. Before, if you get to look outside and you get the numbers on the outside, you're gonna throw the wide receiver screen there. We have seen, and the Steelers have gone to the well one too many times with this, I think, on kind of these the shovel passes to Juju. It's become easier and easier to pick that out on tape.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the numbers to see, what the use of screens is this year. It felt like it has come down a little bit. I'm sure the quarterback's having less freedom to throw hard and make those checks probably have an impact. I'm sure the fact that, with AB, if he didn't get the ball early, you heard about it, so you wanted to get the ball in his hands early to kind of let him get in the action early and make sure he's not complaining about lack of touches, and Juju you're not as concerned about those things with Juju as you are AB. So I think there's a couple of factors in it. But I agree, you do want to find ways to get Juju the ball. There probably are better ways you can do it. And I wrote this or a couple of days ago that the bye week, I think, really gives you a chance to catch your breath and reset this offense and figure out how to tailor it to Rudolph, as opposed to the first 6 weeks where you're just kind of scrambling. You're going through it week by week. You got injuries everywhere. You don't know who your quarterback is. It's kind of just a whole mess. So I think this bye week is really a good chance for Fichtner to reset this offense and chart a better course that gets everyone involved and plays to the strength of the current group of guys more so than it did the first 6 weeks of the year.
Boy, we've seen a lot of Yankee concept stuff. We see more switch stuff now too, and hopefully that kind of stuff will continue. And look, with the RPO and stuff too, Juju didn't get his first catch in that game against the Chargers until kind of later in the second half, and that was an RPO.
And it was his only catch of the day.
And it was his only catch of the day. So I think the worst thing they can do with a young quarterback right now with Mason is to force him to force the ball somewhere.
Right.
Go through your progressions. I mean, obviously, we see how valuable Juju is after the catch and all. And, yeah, you do want to try to get the ball, as feasibly as possible into his hands. So, yeah.
Yep, I'm with you.
Jeff Berg writes in, hey, y'all, listen to y'all talking about Lamar Jackson and got me thinking. Our D may have had the best game against him this year, ? I think that maybe give Steeler fans some feel-good thoughts for the bye week and going into the rest of the season. Lamar only had 1 TD in that game and threw 3 picks. Against the Browns, where they were blown out, Lamar threw for 3 TDs and no picks. Please, dearest of lords, may we beat the Dolphins and may it be a blowout. I hear you, Jeff.
Listen, Miami's playing better ball. I'm not going to pretend like they're gonna win the Super Bowl this year, but they're playing close games. I think Fitzpatrick's a better quarterback than Rosen is right now. It's making them a more competitive team. They're finding a better run game. We'll talk about it more on Friday, but I do have a couple little butterflies about Miami. I don't think it's going to be this cakewalk 40-0 type victory.
Ryan Fitzpatrick knows his defense, or knows the general scheme. Now He did not have the greatest of games last year against the Steelers as a member of the Buccaneers and all, and he obviously does not have the talent over there anywhere close to what he had with the Buccaneers last year on top of it. But he is the better option when it comes to quarterbacks, I think, right now, as opposed to him and Rosen, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think the numbers and the offensive production, at least the last week, really reflect that.
All right. Now, I don't want to get too far out ahead of ourselves here, but, and hope to God we're not talking about this, but could this potentially be the single worst loss of Mike Tomlin's coaching career with the Steelers?
I don't know. You'd have to go through. It's a long history. I mean, it would be up there. But I think you could say the caveat is a 2-4 Steelers team. It's not like they're a 5-1 team. It's not a team that's led by Ben. I think you could probably find some losses with a better record of a Steelers team and with Ben a quarterback with some bad losses. Some of those Oakland losses are probably more egregious than if hypothetically you lost to the Dolphins on Monday.
It would still be an unforgivable loss, though.
It would. It absolutely would, because it would end your season.
I mean, this is a team that statistically, I know the tape's a little bit better, but I mean, they are just awful on both sides of the football. Now they've been without a few players. Mike Tomlin covered that. I don't know how many. I think it's still too early to find out if they're going to get maybe a couple of those guys back or not. I don't know if you've seen anything on that.
I think Howard's going to play. I don't know if Rashad Jones is playing or not. Well, we'll know Friday when we get our beat writer on.
Yeah, absolutely there. But I probably should be have butterflies in my stomach knowing the way the Steelers have played in the past against lower quality teams, but I'm not there with you from the tape I've already looked at.
Yeah, well, I'm the more cynical person of us two, so I guess that's more natural for me to be a little more worried.
I do think that I mean you want there's just I'm gonna hate to have a podcast on. When would it be? I guess we'll probably do one Tuesday morning if the Steelers lose to the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Ben Keaton writes in. Ben Keaton here. I'm a college student from Ohio, surrounded by Browns and Bengals fans, and have been a Yinzer since I was 3 years old. I just recently found a terrible. I think we listened to this the other day, didn't we?
Did we?
This was about Mason and all. I should star these things so I don't read them again. That kind of thing. All right. So with that, I think we've hit all the emails in here. Anything else? Any late breaking news here, Alex?
James Conner says he's healthy. He's going to play against Miami. Sutton Smith signed to the Jaguars practice squad, so he's back in the NFL. And Frank Coonley out as Pirates team president. So some big moves there.
All right, until Friday, and Alex and I will hopefully have a beat writer on who covers the Dolphins to break that down. We'll go over what move or moves the Steelers have made on Wednesday, which we're expecting something to come across here pretty soon. But in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. You can follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Once again, if you like what we do, and we got tons of supporters out there, we thank everybody who's donated, everybody who's supported us along those lines. Thank you. If you want to continue to donate, or if you've yet to do so, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar, and as always, for $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of Steelers Depot as well too. A lot of people are taking us up, taking advantage of that offer as well. And in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.